On May the 25th, 2020, George Floyd, a 46-year-old black man in Minneapolis, was killed by the police. Now, How to Kill an Hour is a black-owned and black-presented podcast. And we obviously, like the rest of the world, have been affected by seeing something like this happen, when really this kind of shit should not be. There's a lot of conversation that Funk and Dev and myself and other presenters in and around How to Kill an Hour have been having about this situation. So we thought we would record an episode to explore this. We have provided resources if you'd like to learn more about how you can help the Black Lives Matter movement. Throughout the show, we mention a number, and there's also a link which shows you a great way that you can donate, even if you haven't got a penny in your pocket, to Black Lives Matter campaigns all over the world. And also there's links to resources that will help you educate yourself and others with regards to what should be pretty simple. Anyway, here's the episode for you. Thank you in advance for listening. Hello, Dev.
What's up, everyone?
Yes, Funk. How you doing?
Easy. Yeah, I'm trapped in the car today.
Sounds very, what's it called? Absorbent in there. Sounds very dead in there. Yeah. It's very good. Car's a good place to record. So yeah, we're going to take a detour from our usual kind of show content. Today, the date that we're recording this is the 5th of June, 2020. And there's a lot going on that we are going to discuss in today's show. And I think this kind of leads on from conversations that I've been having with both you, Funk, and Dev, and the world's been having with each other at the moment. And there's a lot I think we want to get through today. And I think, Dev, we were having a conversation the other day, right?
Yeah, so it was a weird conversation, and it was a quick one.
Yeah.
But we spoke to each other about how do we address what's happening in the news, that the usual way people see us is in quite an entertaining fashion, very light-hearted. We're DJs, we're presenters, we're entertainers. And that it almost felt, because of that capacity, maybe we weren't able to speak on some of these things, that it wasn't really our place. But actually that in itself is worth a conversation, that where do we stand as black entertainers? I don't want to be just a sort of one-dimensional person who's, does a little tap dance and then I'm not allowed to really say or do anything else. But it also feels, with this issue in particular, we can't really look the other way. That we look like the people this is happening to. We are black people. We realize that in this industry, we maybe have a responsibility to speak out against these kind of things. So this feels like a really good way of doing it, is to just have conversations, not pointing our fingers, not getting angry, certainly getting passionate, but just having a conversation about it.
100%. And also, Funk, I think we've also been having a few conversations over the last few days as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, my personality as well, I've been banging this drum for quite a while now. So it's, what's the difference between 2020 and what's happened with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and it's more a case of, it's been the perfect storm where ordinarily people would have a means to escape into their work or to their family life, or take a holiday somewhere, and now they can't. Now, yeah, there's no distraction whatsoever, Dev. So like what Dev was saying, it's almost as if it's the perfect environment to have this conversation, because ordinarily, if you were to have this conversation in an office or with a mate on their way home or days later, there could be numerous activities which will enable them to kind of forget that conversation. This keeps everyone on the subject, on topic, and it has to be the case, because the way I look at it, a lot of these problems, there's a common thread which runs through it. And I think that's why when you look at the images coming out of America, coming out of Berlin, London, New Zealand, even the diverse of mix of people involved in the protest, which is very, very different from it was in the 60s and the 50s, is because a lot of people now, since that period of time, have an emotional investment to someone who is black, and they feel compelled to speak up now because emotionally it's the situation is very emotive. And I feel that, I mean, I've had so many phone conversations over the past couple of days. Some of it is because now more so than ever, the things I've been saying online on using my Twitter are resonating a little bit more. And it's not to capitalize on that moment in terms of a certain guilt onto the individual who's actually reaching out and wants to learn a bit more. It's now saying you can show your commitment by being committed to a solution. We don't want an apology now. Not even money can solve this problem. We've gone past that point, right? Now it's about solutions, and the solutions largely are going to be in the hands of the people who basically caused this problem. And there are certain power structures, like what Dev was alluding to, that as free black broadcasters who've obviously we've kind of converged to know each other at different stages of our life. Don't you find it quite strange how we all know the rules of the game? You can come from that side.
We've never had a conversation about it either.
Never. No, this is no script, nothing. This isn't like you can check our backgrounds. Yeah, we've met via our industries of work. Yet we know what we can and we can't do, because that's just a common thread which runs through the industry. And I don't think that exists in the spaces of our respective white peers, where one white peer would go to another white peer and say, "Oh, did you know that you can't do that?" They'll be like, "No, I can do that. I can do that if I wanted to." There's the parameters and the model is different based on, I don't even know what it's based on really, but there's a lot more freedom of movement and expression, whereas we all know there's certain things that we can't talk about, and we all know the things that we can talk about to kind of get us into spaces and get us notable and whatnot. This is, it's probably one of the reasons why it is actually called the game, because there seems to be rules to it when it applies to us. That's why you kind of hear it in industry talk from people in certain spaces. Oh, play the game, because literally certain moves, certain subject matters, certain positioning, you will get awarded points in your career, and those points will elevate you into certain spaces. But like I said, that in itself is a problem, because a game has restrictions. And if we're part of the game and it's a case of, okay, we're playing the game, at some stage, we're going to get to a point where, for example, football, we want to bring on a fourth sub. You can't do that. I want to bring on 12 players instead of 11. You can't do that, because there is still rules to this game, and those rules applies to us. So after a while, you kind of go through the motions, and the problem I find, and people have said to me, I've had loads of amazing people really close to me, and they've said to me, you need to commodify this. You stop giving them, so to speak, the establishment who benefit from our circumstances, our plight, our frustrations. Stop giving them the means to change things for free. The reason why this is so important to me, and this has got nothing to do with money, and it's important for Marcus, it's important for you, Dev, as well, is because we understand that generations on, in regards to being able to get those opportunities, they start from these conversations. it's the opportunities. We are really talking because we don't want handouts. We just want the ball at our feet as many times as you get the ball at our feet to take as many shots and go. And that's the difference in this whole circumstance where I feel, you feel, we all feel the energy is completely different. This isn't some sort of facade. We're not manifesting this through content or whatever, or keeping this here. We have a very innate ability through our various disciplines to read the mood of a nation. We're part of the media, and we obviously get feedback from our the people who are engaged with us as to kind of what mood they're on. You like in that audience, you like in this audience. Everyone seems very angry at the moment. So
100%.
everyone is on that frequency of, we're actually tired of 2019. We're tired of 2020. We were at the past it point when we got told we had to stay indoors for X amount of days. Now we're here. No. Now you're taking the Berties. So it's, again, I don't really want to get caught into the narrative of how it affects me, because there's no end to the resources available to someone who is white to find out how this affects a black person. They can do that. It's about progressive talk to make sure that we learn from this. We use this as a real foot up to get into a place of just decency and fairness. It's just been unfair, really. The fact that for what you've just disclosed, that's going to shock some people, because their perception of your level in the field is that you have complete freedom and autonomy. And I've been the same. I'm just like, well, no, actually, I can't play your record, or I can't do this, or I can't. And they're just like, why? Why can't you? Why? And they don't understand that the further you ascend within the game, the rules don't really apply.
No.
I mean, we had an instance a couple years back where I think LeBron James was getting racist graffiti on the wall of his house, and it's just like, if multimillionaires can't escape that in their closed in their gated communities, then the conversation has to happen here, because money doesn't seem to be the place to escape it either.
There's so many interesting points that you're bringing up there. The situations at the moment have made me check a lot of my own conditioning, and thinking a lot about my first reactions to things. And one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation today was to try and be as honest as possible. And one of my first reactions was I didn't want to say anything, because you get given the feeling, and sometimes this is said to you directly, sometimes this is said to you in very subtle ways, that as you climb the ladder, as it were, in this industry, that you're lucky to be there. And we've allowed you to this level, but you're replaceable.
Mm-hmm.
And the general perception from a lot of people, not all obviously, but a lot of people, is that if you are a brown face or you're a black person in an area that is largely white in entertainment, that the reason you're there is to tick a box, or it's because of diversity. It can't be because of your talent. That is somehow taken away from you. But the reason that is so hard to unpack for some people, and it's so painful, is the unspoken thing amongst us as black people in this industry is, well, we feel we have to work twice as hard for half as much. So to then on top of that be told that the only reason you've had any level of success is because somebody wanted to tick a box, or because somebody wanted to go, oh, look at how diverse we are. That that equally doesn't make me feel good. When who was it the other day? Was it Fred Perry or someone like that who had all the black models on one of their campaigns?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was. I don't want to get the wrong brand, but let me just check that.
That's a confusing one, because on one hand, that's great to see black faces and everybody represented.
Yeah.
But I'm also, part of me knows that the reason they did that is to score some points and say, look at us, guys, aren't we? So I'm kind of torn either way. But I know that I'm also conditioned through this industry to not be allowed to speak out about how to feel embarrassed. There's a situation, you will both know exactly what I'm talking about, and probably a lot of people listening to this as well. As a black person, when you walk into a professional environment and you're not treated as a professional equal, I'm talking about as a 35-year-old man, I can still walk into a meeting and still, instead of a handshake, I'm offered a fist or some stupid flipping. And again, to try and unpack to that person how disrespectful that, I don't know you like that. You're not my boy saying hello to me at a barbecue. We're in a meeting right now. But I feel embarrassed to try and tell that person about, you're not really supposed to do that. But then when do you start having that conversation, and when do you let that person know? It's exhausting to constantly have to check somebody or remind somebody. But then when does that happen?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I mean, there's a few things that you both touched on there, especially with regards to what you said about being made to feel as if in some ways, you should just be happy that you're here in certain situations. And on top of that, whilst that's something in your mind and you're being treated like that, and even I think as we've all kind of traveled through our paths in the media, we've all like a good point Funk said, we all have experienced things, and it's almost there's a shared knowledge of experiences without us even having to discuss these things. And the fact that there's similarities between those is a big pointer, and it should be a big pointer towards others that are hearing this. If you are not black and you're hearing this and you're thinking, how can all these guys be pretty much in line with each other when they've not discussed this much? Because we have had conversations like this, but I'd say we haven't had enough of a conversation about this, guys. Which leads on to another point is when we do start discussing this openly and outwardly. And I would like to say that in person, I've never been afraid to have the conversation one-on-one or talk with my peers about this. But in terms of there being more to say out there online and amongst others and with white and black people, it's something that I feel more compelled to do, and I will do more, and I feel like there is more all of us can do. And I think, Dev, you dropped a tweet the other day which I could relate to, which was hard to articulate yourself through anger and frustration and feel like a coward for not speaking up. And I'll be honest with you guys, I've called, like Funk will attest to this, I've called Funk before when there's been situations before the ongoings over the last fortnight, and I've said, Funk, I want to do more. Like, how should I do more? Like, what should I do to do more? I feel like I want to lift more. I want to carry more people. I want to put us in a more positive light. I want to put us in rooms where we're not being addressed in the ways that kind of Dev mentioned. And I feel like there is a shift, and I feel like that we are empowering each other the more that we openly have conversations and put for example, there's been a lot of social media today, like I said, the 5th of June, where people have been talking to brands saying, right, well done for you putting up your post with the white text and the black background.
Yeah. Now what?
When are you going to start sharing the figures for diversity within your workplace? And I feel like the more that we all talk and have conversations like this and aren't afraid of having these conversations, the more it's going to pass on and help others. And, I feel like by supporting each other like this, we can have this conversation. And I don't feel awkward having this conversation now, but I feel like it should be something that we should be happier to be having free-flowing speech about and sharing with others. Because another point that people have been sharing, and I think you guys can attest to this, is there's been conversations where people have been talking about, well, if I'm openly talk about supporting, for example, Black Lives Matter movement, what's that going to do to my following? I'm gonna, is that going to put me in a place where I'm not as attractive to others? That conversation has been going around, and I think both of you have kind of touched upon that over the last few days.
Yeah. I think what has happened, and again, black people aren't a monolith. So that's the first thing. It seems to be that's
100%.
That seems to be a slogan which gets knocked around. And the reason why I say that is because white people who may be listening to the show, white professionals who work in the industry, they need to understand that even when you do get that one black person to tick your box, to tick your quota of diversity in your company, that one black person does not represent all of us. And that's what's happened. Because from, I guess, the outside looking in, there's a universal trauma which unites all of us. That can be misconstrued as we all think the same. Okay? All right? There's your Kanye West, and then there's people like me. I don't agree with the stuff that he says, and he probably wouldn't agree with the stuff that I'm about, and that's fine, yeah. Because I've had to learn through the kind of the lovely idea, kind of sold to me in this country of multiculturalism and acceptance, that I accept people even if they are on the other spectrum of ideologically of their positioning. Now, there has to be a considerable amount of learning which had to take place to understand the length and breadth of the discussion, because once you begin to understand, I had this conversation with you, Marcus, the other day on the phone. Once you begin to understand that what is, I guess, on a broad scale of things, unacceptable from a black person, then you need to click on the filter, right? Which then brings down another drop-down menu, which says, what kind of black person are we talking to? Are we talking to a Jamaican? Are we talking to a Nigerian? Are we talking to a Ugandan? Are we talking to Zimbabwean? Are we talking to South African? Are we talking to Nigerian? And that's the point at which, again, they need to further their learning, okay? This is not a game for them to play to push through to protect brand image. Yep. They need to not see this as a game anymore, because how black people and black culture has been leveraged is that this is the aesthetic, the Trojan horse to get me into the economy and to get me into that financial space. Okay? And I'm not really a money orientated person. As long as I need to pay my bills, that's fine. I need to be in a fair situation. That is not fair, because what it does is that it's obviously restricted the level of discussion that it's prepared to have with me based on where the company or where the brand it needs to get to. It's got nothing else to do with that. So that's probably why I know some of my tweets over the forthcoming days and weeks, it's going to get into a fight, and other people are going to get into a fight with their bosses and their establishments, because then you'll begin to see that the real marker of a change is that uncomfortable situation. We've been uncomfortable for years. Since we were born, we've been uncomfortable. And we've had to adapt to the environment that we found ourselves in. And now it's the turn of the establishment who kind of we operate within to now feel uncomfortable. They have to make a very, well, I guess it's tough for them. They're leveraging their economic and financial positions against our societal and our mental and our just our well-being as a community. And it's just those two things at stake. And then you're going to see over the coming weeks and months who values what. Are there people, are there brands who are prepared to have a little less of the pie, maybe even quite a bit less of the pie, to reach this objective? So
it's gonna be interesting to see. Very interesting to see.
Yeah, it's gonna be very, very, very interesting to see, because people can dig in their heels, people can lay claim that they're committed to change. Not just us. This isn't the difference with this time around is there wasn't social media. This is a collective effort. This is going to be the Marcus Bonzis. This is going to be the Devs. This is going to be the Funk Butchers. This is going to be the John Boyegas. This is going to be the Sideman officials. This is going to be the online Whitney Boateng. This is going to be all these other people in their respective fields pushing. But the difference is there's also going to be white people in their respective fields pushing also. There's not going to be a poster boy this time around, like a Malcolm or a Martin. This is going to be a community of people who force in their respective areas the change. Because it's if we allow it to fall on the shoulders of one person, then unfortunately, if you attack the head of that movement, the rest of it crumbles.
If there's one thing we know, that they do, the powers that be do know how to leverage social media to do that. We've seen that a number of times. And I've seen my little tinfoil hat on, but we've seen it happen. And yeah, that's a very good point. Sorry to cut you over, you Funk, but if there is one thing that's really powerful about that, is the fact that if there is like a combined movement from us, there is no, like you said, one head that once that person is out of the picture, we can all go back to behaving how we were before. Yeah.
So it is literally, it's a case, it has to just multiply, you elevate, you back one another, because we're all moving towards the same overall objective, which is fairness.
Yeah.
So a lot of my tweets and my talk is about a fairer society, not in a kind of a hippie way or a bleeding heart socialist kind of way. It's literally just leveling the opportunities out for everyone. And the problem is that what the COVID lockdown has shown is that even if you did have the white complexion, the white skin tone, you were suffering too. The moment someone like Dominic Cummings, who has been in the news recently, and he said something where he saw the rules, he interpreted them this way, so he did it. And a lot of us were like, hold on, but how was he allowed to do that? Then you wait for him to be checked. It's like, okay, well, he's not the top guy, so he's going to get in trouble for this eventually. And he doesn't get the red card. And he's just like, this is interesting. And it's obviously because we've kind of operated in a society where people learn off the examples of one another. I mean, we've always been told to act in an exemplary fashion to show how we are as people, as a society, just show kindness and give kindness. The moment you get the game and people start dishing out 2-footed challenges and no one's getting sent off. I mean, I've played Sunday League for ages. Once the referee has lost control of the situation, it's pandemonium. So we're kind of at that stage now where the context of it, the gravity of the moment, I feel it. This doesn't even feel like what happened with Stephen, because Stephen's one, it shook the nation, yet we felt powerless because we didn't even really see any results from it. The justice that we wanted to see, not just in regards to seeing these criminals, seeing the perpetrators go to prison, just the assurance that, hey, if I live in in Elton, and I'm a black kid and I don't have the money to move out of the area. Am I safe? Am I safe here now? And because there were no real discussions, it's almost like, how do you begin to build any sense of confidence?
100%. And I think in order to build confidence, the first step we need to take has been made by us. And I feel like I'm waiting for the actual first responses beyond like said social media campaigns I've seen from brands. And I was going to say to you, Frank, like what, in an ideal world, what do you think the next steps should be here? However small that might be, what should we be realistically expecting right now?
We're doing it, man. We're doing it. I think we're doing it. I can't remember if it was, if I saw you tweet about it, Funk, like, forgive me, I've seen so many wonderful turns of phrase that have helped me process a lot of things that are going on. But someone said something like, 2 years ago, mental health was a dirty word. And it made and there's another word that you mentioned, Funk, that I think is so vital in this, uncomfortable. Mental health made people feel very uncomfortable. It was one of the things we weren't supposed to talk about, even just as friends, people you've known all your life. It was the elephant in the room and the thing you were supposed to deal with on your own. I feel like there's a lot of parallels with being black in this country, being black in the world, that the reaction I've seen from that, maybe say white middle England, the reaction comes from being uncomfortable. Even just today, I don't know if you guys been on top of the Lee Francis Bo Selector stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you want to put some context in there? Because Devi's, that was like 20 years ago. Some of our listeners are like 18 now,
You say that, but that has such a lasting legacy. In fact, I've got so much to say about even just this. I don't want to get too off topic, but I think it all comes around nicely, right? Because there's a lot of very interesting things that I think were going on with Bo Selector. And I want to say this as well, outright. I watched Bo Selector as a kid, and I laughed my ass off, and I thought it was fucking hilarious. I loved it. I bought all the DVDs or whatever. I thought it was hilarious. And now watch it as an adult, and I say to myself, that's wrong. There's a lot wrong with that. As well as Lee Francis blacking up and taking a lot of like black icons, or certainly people that the black community looked up to, and ridiculing them. The underlying theme of that show was meanness. It was being really mean and ridiculing people with talent or who are on TV. And certain individuals, Craig David especially, I'm just going to say it, there was something about how Lee went above and beyond to ridicule Craig. And Craig David has never said anything really about it. He never came out and said, fuck that guy. In fact, to me, Craig David's treatment, and if at any point Craig had come out and said, I don't like that, stop taking the piss out of me, that he would have been told, you don't know how to take a joke, or he's just messing around. It's just bants. And I'll tell you right now, some of the most offensive things that have been said to me or done to me, racist things, have been under the guise of, it was just a joke, they didn't mean it like that, we were just messing around. That's not an excuse. But that situation there reminds me of situations I've had to face where I felt like I had to keep quiet and I wasn't allowed to say anything because I'm fighting against stereotypes. Within the industry, I know that I've had to constantly count to 10 because I don't want to be the black guy in the room yelling that something fucked up. Even though I might be looking like the idiot or whatever, I don't want to be the angry black guy in the room. I want to make sure that I get invited back and I carry on working, suppressing parts of my personality. But the reaction rather to the Bo Selector thing of, it was just a joke, and it wasn't racist. Even bringing up white chicks as an example of, I don't want to get too off topic and get into the punching up versus punching down or whatever. But if you ask me, I actually think it's all bullshit. I look back at it all and I think, it's all cringy and none of that shit should have happened. But there was a time on British television when we had the black and white minstrel show, which was white people blacking up, and whatever you wanted to say, like it was under entertainment. We had a show called Love Thy Neighbor, which was about a black family moving next door to a white family, and the hilarious stereotypes that white people would think about the black families, bones and noses, all that kind of shit. Time moved on, and we look back at it, and when that was wrong, we need to do better. So I don't see why this situation is. Maybe it's because you're taking something that people care about, and we've sort of based our personalities on. You know, I've quoted Bo Selector a million times. Yeah. At some point, we have to realize we can't do that. We've got to do better. It's the same reason why you don't tell sexist jokes in the office, because we come to a realization that makes people feel very uncomfortable. We need to do better. We shouldn't do that anymore. So regards to your question, Marcus, about what do we do? What's the next step? I think this is it, man. Having those honest conversations that at first are going to make people feel very uncomfortable, but slowly we'll start to check our behavior and be better people.
Mm-hmm. And then following on from that, there has to be a framework where it just never happens again. And I think it happens before in the first place, because when the writers behind Bo Selector, when they take that to a room, pitch it, and it goes through, how does that happen? So there has to be people in those spaces who have enough awareness to read the tone of what is acceptable and what isn't. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like you can have these moments where I think there was a moment on Big Brother where it caused a situation where they were burning effigies in India. That was a racist incident as well. And it was almost like the newspapers here, the tabloids were shocked. And I was just like, how can you be shocked? Even at your level of journalism, where you should have a pretty much broader scope than us on our level. But I guess then it depends on the communities, those people who write, who operate in those spaces moving. If day to day, you don't talk to someone from India, someone from Bangladesh, someone from Pakistan, someone from Ghana, someone from Nigeria, someone from all these places, you won't pick up the culture that you should know, that because you're entering into. The most criminal aspect of it, because we work in broadcasting, but we largely work in the areas of the black music industry as well, is how much of that is happening in the black music industry where it's so tone deaf. And I say it's so tone deaf to the point where I'm not a rapper by any stretch of the imagination, but I know exactly what to rap about to get famous. And I know that if I try to rap about I love Jesus, I love helping old grannies across the street, rap about even mental health, yeah? Someone would come back from these labels and tell me, no, you can't do that. But I'm happy, or I'll be allowed to rather, rap about material which some may say glorifies. Let's just say it depicts me killing and attacking people who look like me. That is marketable. That will be happy to be sold. What comes back off this is that you get the message that because this is creating wealth in black communities, that this is fine. This is fine to do. This is fine to do. But then, if you have aspects where you get black artists and we say we're talking our truth, we're talking our truth. Okay, is racism and your experience is racism, is that part of your truth too? Of course it is, but they're not allowed to speak on it. and so once you begin to unravel and expose the nature of the hypocrisy as to what you're allowed to talk on, because it benefits certain economic energies and others which they don't, because they don't. There's something very I can't find the word for it. It's almost, it's quite sadistic the way those aspects of our culture, the pain and the suffering, is what they want to market. The powers in those positions.
That's what's shocking.
You also, by nature, when you work in this type of industry, chances are you're going to live in a big city, multicultural, and it's very difficult to understand the climate of the whole country. So I think it goes both ways with those same people who tell you that racism doesn't exist in the countries because they don't see it. Same as, to me, the UK seems quite diverse because I live somewhere where I see people from all different walks of life. So I have to check myself and I think doing things on a national scale has reminded me of where the country is at. I saw firsthand the reaction to Dave's record, Black, when that came out. And that was maybe the first time I'd seen that level of, I don't really want to call it anger, but it made a lot of people very uncomfortable, and a lot of people had things to say about it. Especially, what if that was a song about somebody talking about being white? And for me, it made me think about a lot of things, especially in my experience in this country growing up, that Black was never something you were supposed to be proud of. You were never even really allowed to mention it. It's certainly something somebody else could. Somebody else could make a joke at your expense, or if your Blackness was a novelty, not something to be proud of, and not something you should make a song about. But that in itself, that by playing that song was somehow a political statement and controversial. The phrase Black Lives Matter is somehow, again, through these conversations is why I'm trying to understand these things. Us just having this conversation, John Boyega saying, I might not have a career after I speak up about something like this.
I agree with you completely. The only thing I would say is that we know because we are expected to know. So when you're on radio and you broadcast to the whole of the United Kingdom, you have an awareness that, for example, you wouldn't say on air, hey, how's everyone in Liverpool? Are you all reading the Sun newspaper? Because historically, you understand the relationship between that city, that establishment. And so we've all had to do our due diligence on the community that we're talking to and we're involved in. It hasn't happened. It hasn't been reciprocated. So I've never lived in Liverpool. I understand the historical context between Rangers and Celtic. I understand that, but I'm not from Scotland. So how am I able to do all my homework in that area? And for granted, some people might be like, oh, okay, I don't need to know. That's fine. But I think you should be knowing that, especially if you're working in Black spaces or around, you've got Black employees.
100%.
You should be.
Yeah.
That is part of your job.
That attitude of, it's 2020, we've all as a country and as a people learned everything we need to know. We've reached maximum capacity. We've got everything right now. Again, I don't want to keep bringing it back to myself. It's one of the things I wanted to do today is to just talk about my own experiences and try and relate them to things that were going on. It's just, I guess the constantly having to explain to people and how defensive people get about. I remember having this. I don't want to air people out, but a DJ, when I first started, we had a conversation. He slid the word half caste into the conversation, and I said to him what I thought was very relaxed. I said to him, "Oh, you're not supposed to say that anymore." And his thing immediately was, "Oh no, well look, that's what I've always said that, and I'm not racist." And to try and explain to somebody, we've moved on since then. We're not having a go at you. No one is saying that you're a bad person. But like what Funk was alluding to, we have to be sensitive to what is going on and to change. And it's not acceptable anymore to say, I refuse to learn, and I refuse to change or adapt to the world around. We have a responsibility to each other and to ourselves. So we have to be open to this now and start taking on. That's a really, really good analogy with the I've never really thought about that before, Funk. You have to constantly be aware of who you are talking to.
Yeah. Because you will get pulled up into the office and be like, oh, Marcus or Dev, you're so stupid. How could you not know? How could you? They would assume. That's the thing. It would be assumed. That's like, how could you not know? And unfortunately, and it's not unfortunate, it's ridiculous. We don't even have the luxury to be, well, I'm a black guy. How would I know? It's almost like that should be a valid excuse, because that is a kind of excuse which is kind of leveled at us. Well, I'm from this part of town, and how would I know? So if I say the wrong thing about what's it called, someone who lives in the black country, and I get it wrong, or I do an accent and I get it wrong, like, and I go, oops, well, what do I know? I'm a black guy from London. It's not going to save me. It's not going to save me at that level of broadcasting. So there is that, like Dev was saying, there's a level of I guess it's just arrogance of, I've learned as much as I need to know, and the world around me can change to accommodate, rather than meeting them. Well, it's not even halfway. They've got to come a bit further now, kind of thing.
You've got to come all the way over.
Yeah. So, and I think that's what it is. And I think, like you was the beginning of the question in a long-winded fashion, is that we need people in those rooms who do that learning, who are prepared to do that learning, who are prepared to go to the ground. It's almost like, you know, when it happens in film, I guess, where they say, okay, we want to shoot a new Bond film, and then they send someone out to, I guess, go to the location and check it where they can shoot in these spots. Like,
it's called,
is it okay?
Location research.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's almost like you do your research on the environment that you're going to be working in. Nobody seems to do that in that line of work. So,
and there's less excuse. Like there's no excuse. Sorry, we have such a wealth of information around us. And I just want to say the most dangerous thing you can do, listening, and all of us, is to stop learning. There is zero excuse now. It's free to access information. Yeah. And, you know, the conversations are there to be had. Ask questions, talk to your black friends. You know, I've had a couple of phone calls over the last few days, a few people that have said, what kind of, like, you know, I want to help. So a personal situation, a conversation I had just before we started recording today, a white person that I know who is based up north, has a son. She wants to make sure, and she's concerned now after watching what's happened over the last few weeks, that he may not grow up to be somebody who understands race in the same way that she feels she does at this moment in time. And she asked me, what can I do? And I was like, you know, you have to, you can't, he's under 10 years old. He's not at the age where she can sit down and you know, give him the full history. You know, we can't go back 400, 500 years right yet. He's not quite ready to understand and take that all on. But I was like, that you need to kind of make sure that these children are saturated and immersed in an environment where, you know, you show that it's good to learn about others and understand, so that we don't have the next generation growing into this. And whilst there's been a great progression, and when I say great, I don't mean as in great happy, I mean there's been a lot that's happened. There's still a massive way to go. Another thing I kind of wanted to ask you guys about was, because my response to her was, I gave her a list of some reading material and just some books that I remember resonated with me when I was very young. Some books that kind of addressed, there's a list that kind of addressed racism in a way that I could consume it. and I could understand what prejudice was like when it came to race and other physical attributes of humans. With regards to our future generations, what can we do to make sure that, you know, we keep moving in the right direction?
Well, like, I should probably let Funk take over in a sec, because obviously you have kids. I only have nieces and nephews, but with my nephew in particular, you know, he's a dark-skinned black, like young black man, and there's ways I've conditioned him to the world that I didn't realize I was doing. But again, because of recent times, I've had to question it. So I took him out for the first time to a nightclub when he turned 18, and, you know, before lockdown and that. And I was trying to know what I was doing is showing him the ropes. And at one point during the night, there were a group of city boys making a bit of noise in one of the smoking areas. And I told him, I said, just remember, when you come out of your boys, they're already looking for a reason to kick you out. So
Yeah.
When you come to these kind of places, like, make sure you carry yourself well. I said, if we went to the West End, there might have been some bullshit about, oh, you ain't got the right trainers on, or you're not with girls. But already that felt like so confusing to bombard him with all of this. And I don't even know if that was necessarily the right thing. I also spoke to his mum recently that on one hand, I'm trying to teach my nephew about the world and tell him what he's going to expect. But on the other hand, I'm trying to do what I can to change that so that it doesn't have to be. Another example I'll give you is he recently had his hairstyle as like dreads just on top. And I made a point of when he speaks to me, don't have his dreads in his face. And certain times it kind of made me a bit annoyed, the way he would have his hair, his natural hair. And when I unpacked that, I'm embarrassed to say that what I realized my frustration was coming from, I don't want people to look at him a certain way. I know my nephew very well. I know the type of person that he is, but I also know that the way that the world sees him, and also the way that the world's been conditioned to see somebody like him. I have prejudice towards my own kin, my own people around me through my experiences and growing up. So it's this weird, like, double-pronged thing of trying to educate those around me, but also myself, man, and constantly pulling myself up on, like, where do these attitudes come from? Why am I making these decisions?
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard to kind of feel that when you are still getting, you know, this treatment. And I think something we can all relate to is this classic story that we all have known about: walking down the street, young white ladies on the same side of the street as you, and as you get closer to them, there's no reason for them to cross the road, but they cross the road. You know what I mean?
Bro, I had it the second time I ever presented the One Show, man. I remember coming out of the studio, and you get a car, a nice car picking you up. So like when you do radio, you get a nice car to pick you up. And I asked the guy to pull over for a sec because I needed to use the cash point. And across the road, walked up towards the cash point. I saw a woman take her card out, look down the road, see me, put her card back in her bag, and then she just left it. And look, maybe she changed her mind last minute. She decided she was going to pay on card or whatever. Who knows? But it was a very bleak reminder that regardless of me 20 minutes ago being on one of the biggest live shows in the country, none of that matters. None of that matters when I step out the door. None of that matters. Is why the situations that have happened recently in the nude with George Floyd and others, we now can't. I realize I can't afford to look away. I'm not. That affects me. That affects all of us.
Yeah. The thing is, nowadays they'll just call it social distancing. So
it's
another. They've been doing it for years.
Another thing that has come up a lot, and I've kind of been getting this in DMs and chats, and people have been saying, "Yeah, but it's the US. Why do you care in the UK?" I'm going to presume you've both kind of come across this over the last few days as well.
Real quick though, sorry to cut you, Marcus. No. Funk on how you're talking to your kids about what's going on. It's something I really struggle with my younger nieces and nephews. I want to give them some game, but at the same time, I don't want to give them the same insecurities and conditioning that I have. It really does feel like a minefield.
And I'm glad you asked me that, Dev, because I think how you're currently doing it is exactly the page I'm on. So when you talk about the conditioning, I've had to do a lot of soul searching and a lot of kind of unraveling and introspective thought to understand why I conduct myself in the way I do, why I'm taught to be well-mannered and well-spoken, why I'm supposed to react to the compliment of "you're so articulate," why that's supposed to be like a point for me. And I've had to really unlearn a lot of my programming and teach my sons. And I've got, I don't say unfortunately, but from a perspective of stress, having 3 black boys in London, it gives me, it's quite scary because I've seen people move out of London and still face, like they've tried to escape the postcode thing and they still found themselves in some other aspect of this racism crap. You know what I mean? So it's almost like the enemy, as it were, is all around you. You begin to get paranoid, and coming back to what you've asked me, Dev, is that you don't know whether to arm your son, your nephew, your daughter with the attributes to survive in this world or the world you want it to become. And I identify with that completely because I feel currently that at this stage of my life, I might look the age I do now, but I feel 20 years older because I'm burnt out. If somebody said, for all intents and purposes, would you retire next year, give or take if you had the money, of course I would do it. Just because just out of sheer exhaustion.
Yeah.
I know there's some people that have a zest for life and they still want to go in and work and work and work. Because my work doesn't exist from when it hits 9 to 5, it's the mental preparation. Like, I had a conversation with someone who's kind of been a mentor to me of sorts, and I think to most of us, Ray Paul. And he's told me that whenever he used to walk into his workplace, he had to put on his armor and get ready for war, his metaphorical armor, to deal with the onslaught of aggressions and microaggressions that he may deal with day to day. That is taxing when you have to come back and try and bring some sort of positive energy back into your family and your kids' life. And again, that kind of veers off into the question about how all of this affects the mental health of black people. They're all interlinked. So I've chosen to adopt a strategy where if I put in the donkey work now, then at least he doesn't have to, or they don't have to, the three boys, they don't have to work twice as hard, as the saying goes, because the opportunities, there'll be a bit more opportunities, the environment will be a little bit more accommodating to their talents. Because the one thing we still don't know is that if you take a young black boy, a young black girl with, what is it now? They mark it in, it's not A's anymore, it's 9s at GCSE. And you give them whatever, 10 9s at GCSE, and then they still don't get a job, right? How do we explain that to them, that this whole lifetime that we've prepared them for a society which is supposed to be built on being a meritocracy, and it really isn't? So it's a bit of a dangerous thing where you get some parents really trying to drum home this idea of education, which is all well and good if there's opportunities and a fair crack at the job at the end of it. If the selection process at the end of whether it's college, sixth form, university, if the selection process at the end of it is still rigged, we're going to burn out our kids.
Yeah.
So that's why this talk is so important, because the next set of black broadcasters, they may have it easier, and the next set after them, the next set after them, the next set.
We have it easier. We have it
We
easier
do, definitely.
as a
exactly.
direct result of, your Trevor Nelson, for example. You know that it was easier to play R&B and hip hop music in nightclubs nationally.
100%.
And like you said, the people who come up, the young black kids that come up after us that want a job in the industry, it's going to be easier for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not only that, I think I don't just want us to be helping to pave the way. I want us to help pave a path that other people can walk along and follow. And I think that's a really, really big thing for me personally. When I think about situations like this, is what can I provide for others? What tree can I plant that will provide shade for others when I'm not around? And us as black people, us as black people, I think that's one thing that I want us to come together and do and really help build for each other. I want us to help provide resource and infrastructure. And we need to provide resource for each other.
That is going to be the struggle right there, right? Because not to keep harping on about this conditioning thing, it's just something I've been thinking about a lot. We are conditioned as black people in this country to feel segregated within our own communities. Look, I don't want to sort of get into how it's happened, but I'll tell you this right now. By the time I was 11 years old, I was told that, we're separated by postcode, we're separated by North, East, South, West London, we're separated by who's outside the M25 and who's inside the inside of it. And if you go to any other city in the UK, they'll tell you the exact same thing. So before I've even met another black person who looks exactly like me, I've been given 3, 4, 5 reasons not to like that person and not to get along with them. Fast forward 8, 9 years, when I'm a bit older and I enter into the industry, we are also, to go back to my point before, told as black people that this is now your patch. You've been given this, you are lucky. Now you hold on to this. And if another black person comes in through the door, you don't team up with them. You don't collaborate. You don't share ideas, because they're going to take what you have. And remember, there's not enough to go around. And we are fed this idea that as special, I don't talk outside of what I know, in the entertainment industry in the UK, you're told if you're a black person, there is not enough room for everybody. So you hold on to what you have, but now what we're going to have to try and do is unravel all of that conditioning, that we aren't the same and we shouldn't be, that we are somehow in competition with each other. When I'll be honest, I've had it with some of my peers. With the success of this podcast, I've had to check myself to not be jealous, because I'm saying I'm fighting through that thing of that somehow we've been told that we are all in competition with each other, and I need to get this thing before you, and we're not allowed to help and collaborate with each other because that's going to jeopardize each other's plans. I don't know where this has come from, but I'm realizing that these are the things that we need to unpack and get rid of. We do need to collaborate and talk more and support each other.
100%. I think by building for each other and building, houses of help for each other across the board, then I think that will help to do that. Because then it will be less of, like you said, Dev, you've got this one opportunity and another black man comes in the room, one opportunity, and there's 2 brothers there. Who's getting that? We need to create more opportunity for each other. So I think that's a really important part of us moving forward. And I mean, I think it's a Martin Luther King quote, where in society, I think a very important point you both come across is we are given opportunities and we're kind of told that we should make the best of what you got. And I believe it's a Martin Luther King quote where he talks about you could tell a man to lift himself up by his own bootstraps, but it's cruel to say that to a man, who's bootless. Do you know what I'm saying? So whilst we are told, oh, there's equal opportunities out there. You just got to try harder. You've got to get out there. Or some people who have owned media companies this week have said, we want to employ black people. You just have to apply and let me know where you are. The truth of the matter. So I can see myself triggering Funk. I can see myself triggering Funk because I said it. Trigger alert.
Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is for me? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it is for me. I look at it like I look at it like certain industries where if there's specific sought after talents, it's undeniable. So let's say, for instance, you need a really, really sick rapper on the track, and you're just like, oh well, like I want to talk to DWE, or I want to talk to Stormzy, I want to talk to do you know what I mean? You've already earmarked that person for your track, right? You don't open out the application process to everyone. Why would you? You've already not. You've already by design factored that person into that role. So why do we constantly feel like that is happening? So I know there's that word performative, which gets like thrown about. That for me, when brands do that, is very, very, very performative, because it's almost like what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that person for the role. I don't know who that person is, but I'm going to let everyone else know that I'm searching for them. Okay? So I'm going to put listen, when Arsenal are sending their scouts and Man United are sending their scouts, they're quiet and they go out and they get the guy, and before you know it, this is the person, he's a right back, he's going to do this job. This is the person, they're not going to ask us.
I'm going to see it in the classified ads at the back of the paper.
Yeah, I'll be there, mate.
Funk trials for Arsenal.
So that's the thing. I think when they do that, it's so disingenuous, because again, they have no idea of the talent which they need for the role. But what they know they need is a black face. So it's just like, well, I don't know if they need to be good at that or good at that or good at. I don't know the attribute because I don't understand black people. But I know, let's just roll the dice, get a black person in the room, and see what we get. And that's what's happening when they do those processes of getting diversity this, diversity. There was a couple of years ago, diversity inclusion, BAME. I was thinking, what is that? Even that term itself, BAME. I'm like, okay, well, I'm black. This person's I'm black, and I've got of Ghanaian heritage. This person's from India. This person's from Pakistan. This person's from Japan, even. Okay, bit confused. Why have you grouped us all in together? Some ethnic Avengers. Like, what are we supposed to do? You know what I mean? And it's so lazy. It's almost like at school where it was like, okay, year 11 versus the rest in the playground. What do you mean the rest? It's so cheap. Like, I remember it. I used to love it when I used to get to year 11, because it did make you feel powerful. Well, year, and you throw the little kids to the side. Oh yeah, they couldn't get the ball. Yeah, but that's what this is like. This is year 11 versus the rest. Like, we're a team, right? We're the white team. BAME versus BAME. It's just like, what? You tell me you can't have a black team and a Southeast Asian team? Why not?
Yeah,
of course you can. Of course you can. But if the energy behind it is to market the fact that hold on, we need to be seen to be on the pulse here, that we're dealing with this problem. Let's create this. Because I've never understood that term, minority ethnic group. There's more Chinese people in this world. Like, if I was Chinese, I'd be hella mad, you know? I'd be like, what? There's 1 billion of us. You call it minority? You're taking a piss. Jeez. Oh man, you have to laugh sometimes, because I guess that's our coping mechanism for these things.
Of course.
But I posted a little clip today from Michael Che, like comedians, even Dane Baptiste, like they've got a brilliant knack of being able to take societal problems and highlight the satire in it, and just we're laughing at how ridiculous it is, kind of thing. But realistically, they're packaging it for us to really pay attention and draw out the inner narrative of what is happening, kind of thing. And I guess like they're doing the best they can within their art form to bring to illuminate some of these ridiculous situations. But now there comes to the talking stage, and I'm tired. Like you say that about the notion of kind of putting this to the people. We need to get this in it. We need to get this. Like, we already, the industry, as it were, already has an awareness of those individuals because they were probably always doing that role or always doing that job. So if you wanted that person to fulfill that role, you can get them in like that. It's not going to be difficult, because it'd only be difficult if you were never paying attention. And I guess that is the point of the discussion. If when you talk to me as a black person, I kind of nod off unless you're singing. Like, you're singing to me, you're rapping, and I'm just like, yeah, engaged. And then you start talking about your racism, and I just go, oh. Like, if you're doing that in the industry, then you're never going to find that person. And that's why I always implore everyone in the music industry or anyone in any professional capacity, diversify your conversation. Because if they say to you, keep it this, and then you keep it on that topic, you only talk about music, you only talk about sport, you only talk about these times. I love Gary Lineker. I love Gary because Gary Lineker talks about what the hell he wants, and if he didn't, how would some of these subjects get into the living rooms of people?
Yeah.
And
I think it's so key.
Yeah, they're always onto him. No, this isn't match of the day. This isn't football. Why are you showing us like black kids getting beaten up? It's just like, no, you're gonna take this.
Yeah. And
what he does is he throws it at them, and then he goes back to work. He throws it. So I'm just like, I'm empowered by that. I'm emboldened by the fact that this guy is doing it. And if you really want an idea of true equality, it has to exist in a case where, back to what Dev was saying with our children, we teach children that you all have the same capabilities. Not that the black child, when he gets to the same age as Gary Lineker in broadcasting, that if he was to conduct himself in that manner, he risks losing his job. He has to have the same vigor and support and confidence that I can say this because this is wrong, and it still gets me a job. Like you said, these discussions are very important at times, because I guess I do have to, on some level, accept that everyone's experience, everyone's entry to the question and the problem of racism is different.
Of course.
So you may have to do some re-explaining of yourself in some spaces. But I completely understand why some people are exhausted and they don't want to talk about this anymore. I think there's a book titled that I don't want to talk about racism to white people anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not talking to
yeah.
That's it. Why I'm not. So like that title is pretty self-explanatory, because it's a very tiresome process when you look at the fact this is 400 years in the making.
Yeah.
And well, I've even had some white friends with the best of intention sort of check in on me and be, is everything all right? And I was just wondering how I could. I'm just a bit over now the onus falling on us to educate. And I know that the theme that keeps coming up is being tired and just worn down. But then I see that was a difficult one for me, because on one hand, someone's trying to change. It's like the David Guetta performance the other day. I don't know if you guys saw the David.
Yeah, it was
had all the best intention in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he had all the best intentions in the world. Yeah. I think for all intents and purposes, white people need to take it on the chin, really, because we've had to deal with it. You give it your best shot, yeah. If you get it wrong, you go again. You get it wrong, you go again. We've had to do that. That's been the story of our existence. You get it wrong, you go again. Oh, you're not good enough, go again. Hey, you haven't got the right shoes on, go home, get dressed. Like, we've had to do that. Do you know what I mean? That's been the story of our very existence. So as much as I can be accommodating and understanding, I have to be very consistent and just from my perspective in my message of, okay, learn again. What you do not get to do, you don't get to leave the exam hall until you finish the paper. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So you have a go at the question, keep going. Like, you're not leaving the exam hall, because we didn't get a chance to. We exist in this examination room, and we have to keep going. You bring your degree, you bring your experience, you bring your this, you bring your best dressed, come in all your finery and all that kind of stuff, and you're still getting a no. What do? You try again.
Yeah.
And that's literally been our experience. So the David Guetta thing, he ran, went for the jump, and he fell flat, and he's got to get up and then go for it again. Do you know what I mean? It's simple.
Yeah. No, I don't hate him. I don't hate him at all.
I don't hate him.
It was a lovely gesture. It was just done.
I'm up on that now. That's a bad way to kind of try and do a remix, Guetta. Just don't do that, bro. That's the worst Guetta remix I've seen in my life.
But this is what. So this is another conversation. So
yeah.
That situation. That conversation is very close to my industry of work in terms of house music and the way that black voices are used on records as an aesthetic to provide some sort of
authenticity.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is like a black female voice is the sound of house music. It's like
the black female voice, or someone who is a protest speaker, because the art form is born out of protest. Is black, gay, and Latino men, who are marginalized from mainstream clubbing, so they built up their own community, their own sound, and they were raving. Now, to kind of, I guess, honor, they just put on, they sprinkled that voice on there like a sauce.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yeah.
It's not like the black artist is still attached to a human being with an experience and whatnot. We need to be stopped using as some sort of garnish that you just put on the art form to do this, to do that.
Well,
and it's been happening.
Again, these conversations are so vital, man, because I saw that as a thread that you'd put on Twitter the other day, and I've been buying records since I was 12 years old and been in the music industry for a while, and it's something it never even crossed my mind before. That that we're sort of able to create this whole sound, and people have made whole careers and made a lot of money, and those artists aren't even credited for it.
Yeah.
We don't even see them.
No. And that's the saddest thing. And again, I don't want to divert this into some sort of witch hunt, because that is a waste of energy as well. It's more about you expose the problem and then you find a solution very quickly, because otherwise you can get bogged down on a certain blame to, well, this one done it, this one's responsible. Like, for the large portion, people know who the culprits are. Okay? Now we need to find out a way to compensate those who have pretty much had careers like tarnished and put on hold because they were so invisible for so long that they've been forgotten, and a way to make sure that the necessary people are in the room to make sure that doesn't happen again. Now, if you exist as a label in rap, grime, house, techno, R&B, you name it, and you don't have the necessary progressive voices to project a reality of what that sound represents, where it's coming from, the community is coming from. And for example, just out of just to portray what do you call it, like mine's gone blank. Just to portray an example which is proper out there, really out there, is if I took a Bangor sound, yeah, and I literally projected a whole heap of black faces, and I didn't pay any, like, and literally I pushed that into the mainstream. Like that was the first, like, let's say, Bangor tune which made it into the mainstream community, and the community I reflect in the video isn't indicative of where the sound comes from. There would be uproar, clearly.
100%, and yeah, 100%.
And that's not just to say that the about the community involved. It's more a case of it doesn't respect in any way, shape, or form its roots, and it tries to do that by saying somewhere along the line, someone black got money from it, so you should be okay with it. That's the problem. I think the narrative that in all of this, there's a black person that got some change, that should placate people and be like, oh, okay, well, this person became a millionaire.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's like moving the conversation too far away from it, but one thing that's always made me feel uncomfortable in mainstream music industry is the hysteria around a white artist who can do black music. And something I've said, and I love these artists I'm about to talk about as well, talking about Adele, Ed Sheeran, Justin Bieber, that as talented as they are, you could walk into a black church in America and pick anyone out of the choir who would sing circles around those people. And again, whether we want to address it or not, one of the things why we're so impressed about Adele when she opens her mouth and she sings, she doesn't look like she's supposed to sound like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like the way a lot of that music is received, black music even in itself is quite a dirty term for Middle England. When One Extra first started, our tagline was home of new black music. And that made a white audience feel very uncomfortable because it was maybe for the first time a lot of them felt excluded from something that you've always been told is just yours. Everything is, if you're a British person, I'm talking about myself in this, you're sort of grown up. It's that empire mentality of, well, I deserve to have a little bit of that as well. And so to the point where we sort of had to drop that term, black music, because it made people so uncomfortable. But when I've thought about that, why is that term not okay? That's where the music comes from. It's music of black origin. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It shouldn't make you feel uncomfortable. Equally, it's changed a lot now. But when I first started on mainstream radio, the type of music that was revered was the novelty. I'm talking about hip hop and rap, R&B songs, the ones that were novelty, that had a dance that went along with it, or the guy had a name you could take the piss out of. The discussions around these artists and the music on the network, these weren't, I don't think that they were given the due respect that some other artists were given.
Yeah.
And that the more conscious and the more, I guess, people who were speaking about black issues or black pride, those were the more late night records. You would save that for more of a specialist show. When I saw the clear change was, I'm going to say like an artist like Tiny Temper, who, regardless of the type of music he was making, sort of became bigger then. Is he making rap? Is he making hip hop or grime or whatever? Sort of became bigger than that. But to touch on something that Funk said earlier, the attitude that I got from people, Middle England, Tiny Temper, will accept him because Tiny's polite. And, when he's in an interview, he's very well-mannered. And I remember that bothering me, but it's almost like you needed a Tiny Temper on TV so that we can now arrive at a Big Nasty as well.
Yeah.
At the other end of the spectrum. And here's what I want. I want Tiny and Big Nasty, and I want everyone in between.
Yeah.
So that we have all these different representations of Black people, so that it's not just playing into the stereotypes, the negative stereotypes as well. And equally with the music, I want to see it all represented. I want to hear drill on mainstream radio, and I also want to hear a young Black person talking about their plight and their struggle in the country. I don't understand why that would be so difficult for an audience to understand. And if then when do we start making that shift to, as well as celebrating and reflecting some of the maybe more negative or nefarious aspects of our culture, can we also start pushing the stuff that, you know, celebrates the positive?
Yeah, counterculture. And that's what, that's a term I've been like saying even since I was talking about the knife crime and the youth violence thing a couple of years back, that if people are worried about certain types of music and it having a negative effect, let's say, because music has an effect on people, whether people will choose to admit that or not, it does. It lifts your mood, it can make you feel angry, it can make you feel sad, people have sex to it, kind of thing. It really, to say that music doesn't influence mood is dismissive anyway. So in that, I'm a person that I can blatantly see that there's an overwhelming majority of Black music dedicated to this kind of mood. That's all. And rather than be like, oh, we need to ban this, but some people talking about banning, I don't want to ban anything. I think you need to compensate it by getting the rest of the spectrum of the moods on there, which reflect on the Black experience. Black funny songs, Black love songs, Black ballads, and all Black jazz, all these other aspects which they just are just chucked into the underground sphere of, oh well, that's underground, or we'll chuck it on wherever, Radio 2 or whatever kind of thing. So why does it have to be on there? Why? Well, why does it have to be played by a specific tastemaker who then dictates the narrative of the kind of people who should be listening to that music? So, for example, it's almost as if you make the music, but the music is audience can then get funneled depending upon which DJ who breaks it. So I can make some real angry, anti-establishment shit, yeah, and depending upon who plays it, it can go either way. Now, if I get a debut with, let's say, Charlie Sloth, yeah, it could go one way. If I get a debut on my record, the same record with Giles Peterson, it goes a completely different way. It's perceived in a whole different, and that for me, I'm like, you see, them realistically, that's why that whole drill conversation and it being negative, all that kind of stuff, it's not really, because if a certain DJ, a DJ with or a tastemaker who had an image about him which is completely counter to what the music represent, he could almost smother that in he or she's cloak of image and push it in a completely different direction. So that's why I've always been like fascinated how you get some acts who are seen as really cool and edgy and hip, and then other acts who they've got the same energy and they're seen as, oh, that's ghetto, that's hood, they belong on that YouTube channel, they're a bit like, they're lowbrow. But this one is, oh, they're highbrow, they're really pushing the art form. Look at culturally, they're shaking boundaries. We're saying the same thing, really. But the packaging is obviously based on the vehicle, which where it's coming from. But coming back to your thing about Black music, is the thing I always respond to people is that when you go takeaway, Black music is by definition is where it has originated from. It doesn't mean it is not inclusive of everyone. And people know that because everyone is involved in black music. Same way, when you go to a Chinese shop and you order the meal, they don't say no because you're not Chinese. They allow you to eat it, but they don't allow you to try and say, like, well, I'm just going to call this food for all people. No, it's not. This is Chinese food. And it's very simple. When you start hitting people with that rationale, when you go to the Indian and you get your chicken tikka, it's Indian foods. What are you going to do? Argue with the man there? Your food will get cold, mate. Take your Indian food, and go home and eat it. Enjoy it already. Go and enjoy it. You enjoy the black music, just go and enjoy it. Why are you standing here back and forth on about the title of it? Because I know afterwards you're going to go back to your Spotify list and listen to some more black music. But I understand, because when you can claim a title, when you can really, there's a level of encroachment that happens, that once we begin to redefine certain terminology, then the power shifts. The thing I liked about the blackout thing the other day, which again, some people were for, some people were against, as you well know, some people had different interpretations of it, is that it meant that big, huge companies were using the word black in their press releases. From that point onwards, we can leverage it. It's almost like, aha, we got you now. You called it black. It's like yes or no game. It's like, there you got me, kind of thing. They've said it now. So any conversation which comes back off of that, we can lay claim to the fact you've admitted that this art form, whatever, these people need to be represented. Therefore, going by your commitment, unless you want to be seen as a hypocrite and your brand integrity wants to be questioned, you have to do that. You have to commit to that. So I was always looking at it like, this moment is never going to happen, because when Dominic Cummings sat there and, are you going to apologize? Are you going to apologize? Are you going to apologize? Are you sorry for going to Durham? Are you going to apologize? Like, nah, yeah. He was bobbing and weaving. He didn't apologize once.
Yeah.
And that for him is a victory, yeah? We've been trying to do this for companies. Are you playing? No. Urban. They hit us with the urban fireball. It's, shit, right? Now they've said black. It's like, we got you now. We got you. You can't say urban again.
Yeah.
Every plugger has to kind of go through their little template and and take out that urban thing and chuck in
find
black
and
music.
replace. They have to do find and replace.
Because that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's the industry definition for it. It's almost like you get to a point in terminology where what's the old term? Is it CRB check? No one uses that in industry now. It's now DBS.
Yeah.
You know what I'm just saying? So that's dated. So it's like, that's a dated term now, urban. We're going to move forward. Everyone's going to say black music. And you know what falls under that umbrella. Cool. We move forward. And it's really about pushing this thing and really, really, really just applying pressure in all of our spaces. Kind of thing. Oh, someone catches you in the corridor. Oh, Marcus, have you got that new urban chip? No, it's black. Before they even finish so they begin to understand. Do you know what I mean? In all those spaces, everyone needs to be doing their part to push the narrative, the old habits, kind of like out of existence, and pushing the progressive nature of the movement. Because this is all about, in my opinion, about the decision making and making sure that, okay, even if possible, and I don't even like the concept of this, but even if there is a possibility where you have still a room full of all white people in a black music environment, they now know that they can't do these things because of what will happen to whatever their sales and their profit margins. But that level of uncomfortability has never probably existed before. Yeah. What? A black singer? Yeah, man, we just put a cartoon character. They don't mind. Like, what, black singer? Just put a white girl there to mime the words. That's fine. I mean, he's getting paid, isn't he? He's getting paid. He's getting paid. It's cool. It's cool. Everyone's all right.
Yeah.
And then when they talk to the black person and let's say the black artist or the producer who's in the record, maybe they themselves in that environment, and this is on an artistic level, the artists need to obviously push and make sure that, hey, get the right people, the right representation in the video, kind of thing.
Yeah, they need to give that power back to artists, because a lot of those decisions are clearly made artists. It's not if they even get looking on it, you know.
Yeah, but I do. But this comes back to the conditioning that Dev was saying, because I feel for the artist, because if you have a belief that if you speak out at the wrong time, you lose that support, that backing. Yeah, you are going to keep quiet, and there's a lot of heavy hitters on social media that haven't really spoken up on this issue. They're going to go back to their promo role, and as much as people can be angry at them and whatnot, you have to really understand what it's like when at that stage of their career, there's very few black decision makers to support them in the room when they speak up and they say, oh, well, I'd like to shoot the video in Ghana, for example. I'd like to wear or kente cloth in my video, or whatever your requirement is to reflect the authenticity of your art form. If there's no one in the room to kind of back you on that, but there's a kind of subtle way where they kind of bring you around to their way of thinking of, well, I don't know if the market's really ready for this. You know, I mean, be realistic. Who knows about fufu? Do you know what I mean? And then you're just like, okay, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. And then you begin to backtrack and you begin to kind of retract all your artistic requirements. But that is happening everywhere, where the support in those instances, you don't feel it, so you don't feel the energy, the courage in the moment. You don't get that rush of adrenaline of, I can say this. And largely that energy, in the black spaces, that energy comes predominantly from a lot of black women. A lot of black women have the energy to call it out, and then they're not backed.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, and even from my position, I apologize from being a kind of an overseer and maybe not speaking up hard. I've always spoke up, but maybe not speaking up hard enough to bang that drum, because a lot of them have laid their careers on the line, and it's been detrimental to them, where they've spoken up because unapologetically they want to be themselves, and they've been told, well, you're a bit too dark, or we don't like your hair like that in the video, or can
100%.
Can you straighten your hair? Yeah,
100%. And I think we can all be guilty of not supporting others enough, and that's a mistake that we can all change and move forward with. Again, like, you know, this is conventionally a podcast where we do weave in tech and tech conversations, and whilst I have had open conversations with a few of the team, I think definitely with you, Funk, a few times, talking about, do you know what, in terms of diversity, how many women do we invite onto the show to join us? Do you know? And like, apart, you know, and are we just inviting women for women's sake? No, like, do you know what I mean? So when we have people on like Lucy Hedges or Ramel London, you know, people that in entertainment and also, you know, leaders in their areas, regardless of not using their female attribute, you know, it's something that as men we need to be aware of supporting as well, because it's one thing being a black man, being a black woman in 2020. I cannot comprehend. Dave Chappelle's got some great content around that, like, and I can't even remember the joke, but like, I cannot even begin to comprehend. So, you know, whilst this is a conversation where we're trying to look at how we can better ourselves as people, you know, as free men, I think to better ourselves by, you know, holding up black women as well and supporting them where we can, you know, is important too, man. Let's look after our people. Let's look after our women, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real dogfight, and I think because this encompasses so many industries, like someone said the other day, like, where where are the black characters in computer games even? Do you know what I mean? So it's such a wide ranging conversation because we're still waiting for our Lara Croft. We're still waiting for what Lara Croft meant to in terms of a female protagonist driving in the game, and we're still waiting for that black character on the game of a major title that is just lucrative, and everyone goes out and you got the new so and so game kind of thing.
One that isn't a G though. One that isn't Quessy man. One that isn't a gangster though. Yeah, like
exactly.
He's had a couple of licks, but let's have Quessy man.
Yeah, Quessy man. Quessy's quest. So we're still waiting for Quessy's quest. A black man who is intelligent and he's just an adventurer, and he has to fight, and he's a hero. Yeah. And you control him.
Yeah.
I don't want to see a game where, like, do you know what really, really saddened me? Yeah. A couple of years ago, obviously, FIFA brought out the Journey. Now, people are mad, not at the game dynamics of that FIFA game. They're mad because the Journey character, you have to be a black guy.
Now you know how.
Okay, this edition of FIFA, I'm scrolling my time. Like, why are people angry? These times, obviously, we're still on Twitter. Why are people angry? Is FIFA too expensive? Yeah, man, it's too expensive. What is it like? The passing isn't that accurate, or what is it? It's not hasn't got the right celebrations in it. No, these are mad because there's a black guy that you have to control, and you can't edit him. You can't go into like the character setting and change his complexion quickly and his features. You can't. You have to play it as that black guy. I guess from a racist mindset, it must be quite infuriating taking a black boy on a journey of success. It's like, it was like, this is a nightmare for me.
Oh, man.
But like, there better be a prison option.
Yeah.
Or I got played, man.
That's like giving a man a Jacob's cracker in hell, man. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Dry him up. Right.
Yeah, and I think that in itself is why these conversations are so important, because we've got a hell of a lot of a long way to go, because we need to get those people in those rooms. I don't know who they are, but the people within those industries, whether it's gaming, entertainment, all aspects of tech, all aspects of entertainment, period, they know who their specialists, men and women are.
Yeah, exactly. And I just find that hilarious because it's such a now you know how it feels moment. But we need to see more. Like, was it the Watchmen series that dropped at the end of 2019 with Regina King? That proved the point.
Brilliant.
Not to me, but I feel like to skeptics that we can have strong lead female black characters that bring an amazing show for you to watch. Do you know what I mean? And I think Watchmen really kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of showing us what kind of content we're missing out on, what kind of greatness we're missing out on by missing out in diversity on shows. And fuck, that was a good watch, actually. I might have to watch that again. It's pretty good. I like that. It was a good Watchmen. But I suppose it's kind of, we've covered a lot today, and I'd like to say I want to continue the conversation, guys, off mic, and also I'd like to continue on mic. And I feel like I want to say to the white people that are listening to this, take it in, man. Like, listen to conversation, not just this. You don't have to listen to this podcast again, but listen to other people's conversations. Like, if you don't know what to do, there's nothing wrong with contacting somebody and having a conversation. And there's a lot of black people that you may try and contact that are feeling quite tired and stressed, and it may not want to open up as much as you want to get the answers that you need. But there's nothing wrong with continuing to try and learn and try and reach out to other people. Because I think we need, without sounding cheesy, but we need unity, and that begins through having conversation. And let's use the word black, man. Black people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And not to cut you, Marcus. I know some people don't like this. They don't like this comparison or this analogy. But look, man, I'll tell you, as a young black man getting into the industry, I was I was told by my peers and by a lot of the music that I listened to how my attitude was supposed to be towards gay people. And we had anthems in some nightclubs that I used to go to that actively promoted not just hatred, but violence and murder towards gay people. And it was only through working and listening to a gay person's experience that I realized how much of my behavior that I had to check. And it same as what it was like to be a woman in this industry, or the difference. One of my co-hosts commented on, I had a bit of a crazy, so I don't use that word, I had a bit of a enthusiastic stalker. And she asked me one time if I was worried if the stalker was going to be waiting for me outside work one time. I said, no. I said, at worst, at best rather, I could outrun them, whoever it is. And, you know, my female colleague was like, right, it must be nice, basically. And I'd at that point, I'd never even considered the connotation of how much more threatening that is as a woman to have somebody writing you letters and saying that they're going to come wait for you. But the point I'm trying to make is this: understand that it came from listening, not from trying to interject or trying to have a competition of who's had it worse off and who's had the odds stacked against them the most. And just to add on Marcus's point, you don't have to agree with anything. And maybe you don't have to change, all right? But these conversations are going to keep on happening, and it's different now. It's different. The horse has left the stable. That's it now. We feel empowered. We feel like these type of conversations are okay. And I know certainly for me, I feel like I have a responsibility to keep this kind of thing going. I've been thinking a lot about 15, 20, 30 years from now. How do I want to look back at this period of time? How do I want to look back at it and go, how did I contribute towards making something change for the positive? And I think we're already doing it. Whatever little steps it might be, I think we're already doing it.
100%. And maybe ask yourself, what do you want to say you did when this happened as well?
Yeah, and I think also as well, I think my message for the white listeners that are listening, I think I would like to say thank you, because I think already you're showing a commitment to begin to educate yourself on a subject that, for whatever reasons, you may not have fully understood. But if you're willing to channel yourself into a platform that you was already a fan of and begin to learn and understand what it has taken us to even be able to do what we're all doing now, that's a start, because then you can become more appreciative of situations. I mean, like Dev just said, I work in an industry which is literally off the backs of Black, gay and Latino experiences, but many people do not know that. And obviously that makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm not a gay Black man, but it makes me feel uncomfortable that even their struggle, which has afforded me a career, it still isn't amplified as to where it comes from. So if they feel that way, kind of thing, you can imagine how, like, the Black experience must feel as a whole. And also, I would just like to add that white people need to understand that we're not a monolith. We don't have some homogenous mindset and setting. You will definitely find Black Trump supporters, you know, and that's that. That's cool, because we have to be cool with the idea that we are such a diverse people, even in our thinking. Okay? But what we won't tolerate is the unfair practices that don't factor us in anyway. So even when you get a Black Trump supporter, he's not a Trump supporter by choice, by definition. He's been conditioned to. You know what I mean? And I think that's a very, very, very important fact, that the circumstances where you would get someone who is Black, who aligns himself politically with those kind of mindset is very different from someone who is white and literally is drawn into that community. They're very, 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 very different points of entry. So I would take that into consideration, that for someone to be like, oh, well, some of you black guys are okay with the current situation. You have to understand the circumstances which has created that mindset which would make them okay with that situation. I guess it's a form of Stockholm syndrome in some instances.
Yeah, 100%. I think to be black in the UK a lot of times is Stockholm syndrome. So I've been unpacking a lot of that. In fact, even just having these type of conversations for me have been very cathartic. The theme I've seen with a lot of the people that I've worked with for years who I've never heard talk about any of this is pain. Once the anger had subsided, it was like the pain. And that for me has been very powerful. It's also prompted me to feel like it's okay for me to open up and for me to talk about stuff, maybe for the first time ever.
But yeah, I think the white people listening to the white audience that we've had from our own individual platforms and collectively as on How to Kill an Hour, just thank you, and just keep pushing. We've got to get this over the line because this benefits all of us. Whether you can see it now or not, this does benefit all of us. There is a common thread running through it because, like I said at the beginning of the show, that the diverse mix of people on the street rioting is because the pain is common now. So thank you for those who are kind of taking a step further to try and understand. I guess it's similar to when we had the instances on 9/11 in America, and some people had been oblivious to religion. They knew there was Muslims, they knew there was Christians, they knew there was Hindus, knew there was Sikhs. They didn't understand why a group was frustrated and all that. And then you begin to learn, you begin to understand, more things become highlighted, and you begin to understand the bigger picture. Not to necessarily pick a side, but to have a greater level of understanding as to what is offensive and what isn't. Because up until that point in time, I mean, you've got going back a bit, you've got like Salman Rushdie when he wrote his book and he offended the Muslim community, and he had to go into hiding. So
he had a fatwa put out.
Yeah, he had a fatwa. So there's a level of arrogance sometimes from people in those positions where they can do what they want, when they want, and it doesn't have ramifications, especially on a group that have already been metaphorically beaten up over the years. Not even metaphorically, literally beaten up for well over 400 years. So yeah, it's but it's good that a lot more people than I've ever felt before are willing to educate themselves. Because, like I said, this lockdown has been the perfect storm. What else is there to do with your furlough money? You might as well read.
Buy some books.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of resources, there's a great number of resources out there for people. Like, you know, if you really want to educate yourself, it is blacklivesmatters.card, CARRD.co. So Black Lives Matters with a s.carrd.co. Now, what's pretty cool on it, guys, is you can obviously, you know, learn. There's ways you can educate. There's information about protesting. There's also ways you can donate. And one of my favorite things that I saw is I understand that, like you said, Frank, we're on the edge of a world recession right now. It's going to happen, right? So people have not got all the money. You can actually donate with no money. There's actually so what it is there's actually a link to a YouTube playlist of videos, and all of those videos are donating all of their results. All of their ad revenue to Black Lives Matters charities and things to help out with scenarios happening within the US at the moment and generally across the world. And what's great is no one's ever wanted to watch ads as much as they do now. The more ads you watch, the more you're helping. So that's really, it's a really clever way. And there's a number of videos. There's music. There's conversation. There's original content, and you can just slap that playlist on and enjoy it, educate yourself, and you're giving back. I mean, like, it's great. It's perfect. If you haven't got much to give, that's a way you can give and also, learn at the same time.
And definitely just to add on to that, with that, the show we did with Cammy.
Yes.
It's a really good example of, somebody talking about something, an issue that I feel like previously has been swept over.
Yeah.
And you would assume somebody in Cammy's position, because he's successful, because he's so revered, he's almost immune from racism. It's not really how it works.
Yeah, it was episode 336. I mean, you can almost... Cammy's seen, like you said, like just what you said, Dev, like he's seen in entertainment as somebody who's jovial, fun, up for a laugh, up for people. Almost, when you watch Cammy, they wait for him to make a blunder and he knows he's made one and it's a giggle. And like, once you really understand what he had to experience in 1979, I think it was, playing football professionally, you understand what he went through and how tough he is. So that's definitely a good listen if you really want to broaden your horizons as well. Thanks for reminding us about that, Funk, because that was actually that's an episode that I've actually listened back to just to hear Cammy talking about how things were. And there's a few things that we mentioned, including Dev talking about shows like Love Thy Neighbor, that Cammy really gets into kind of how that affected what media was like then and how that affected him as a footballer. But thanks very much, and thanks guys for having this conversation on the podcast as well. I mean, we've had these off air and it's good to kind of get this all out there, do you know what I mean, and start the conversation, do you know what I mean? I feel like we could have done a lot more than this, you know? But and also like reach out to us, guys, let us know, hit us up and let us know if there's anything that you want us to kind of discuss within this area. I feel like I'm more comfortable just putting it out there, man. Let's have the conversation, let's do it, man. And Funk Butcher's Twitter, definitely check that out, because he's dropping bombs all day long. He's dropping gems, man. Dropping gems on us. But there's plenty of ways to kill some time out there. Thank you for killing some time with us. I've been Marcus Bronzy.
I've been Funk Butcher.
I've been Dev. See you guys later, man.